Welcome back to Unapologetically Visible, the podcast for high achieving Latina and women of color founders who are done being the best kept secret. I'm your host, Christina Olivarez, award winning visibility and leadership coach, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of the Social Butterfly Gal and Hustle and Socialize. No one prepares you for the grief that comes with leadership growth. They prepare you for the strategy, for the marketing, for the visibility. They hand you templates and frameworks and say, here's how you are going to scale. But no one hands you a map for what happens when the version of you who built the company starts to fall apart. You can't experience this type of leadership development in a cohort or a group coaching program. This type of leadership is the lived experience of a decade of ups and downs, wins and losses, failures and successes. No one tells you that leadership, and I'm talking real leadership, will ask you to let go and release and grieve parts of yourself you thought you couldn't live without. Through entrepreneurship, there are many times that you will go through all of the stages of grief. And today, I want to have that conversation with you. The one nobody prepares you for when you decide to start a company. This episode is all about the quiet breaking that happens when you've been in business for nearly a decade, when you yourself stop applauding what you've built, and when your soul whispers, it's time to build differently. We are going to talk about what performative leadership taught me, what embodied leadership feels like now, and what it really takes to navigate the grief that sits in between the two. By the end of today's episode, my hope is that you walk away knowing how to spot when you are performing leadership instead of living it out loud, how to sit in the uncomfortable middle, and it is really uncomfortable, and how to reimagine your next era of business from alignment and not adrenaline. This episode in particular is for my seasoned founders, the ones that are 5+, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20-year veterans, the women who have already built the damn thing and are now navigating transitions of life that no one warns you about, like becoming moms, or sending your kids off to college, caregiving for your parents, or simply feeling the quiet tug that says, I'm ready for a softer way to lead. Let's get into it. When I started Social Butterfly Gal at 24, I wasn't even thinking about my leadership or even my leadership styles. I wasn't thinking about how I was going to navigate challenges within my decision-making or even just developing those leadership skills. I was super naive, but also I was 24. And by that point, I was just trying to figure out how to make a living doing something that no one even had language for or even a roadmap at the time. I just knew that I wanted women, especially Latinas, to be seen, to have platforms, and to feel proud of their voices. Those early years of entrepreneurship were full of grit and ganas. I was throwing spaghetti on the wall, creating so many different offers and changing up my business model and saying yes to everything. I was hustling. And because I was so young and naive, I was a people pleaser. My worth was measured in the output. And it felt like the more I produced, the more I felt like I, in particularly, mattered. For the first 3 years of Social Butterfly Gal, I was doing all of the social media management things, all of the consulting and the speaking. And then in 2018, that's when Hustle and Socialize was born. Suddenly, what I had built online had a heartbeat. And every single year, my business started to grow. I was getting more clients. I had more sponsors on Hustle and Socialize's end. I acquired Hustle and Socialize. And I was building this movement. It felt like I was building my own table for Latinas and women of color who were usually left out of the conversation. And yet, behind everything that I was doing, behind the applause and all of the accolades, something in me always felt like I wasn't really fully aligned. Every win sort of carried this shadow. The moment the conference ended, whether it was 1 year after the other, my first thought was, okay, what's next? How can I continue to elevate? What could I be doing to go bigger? And it wasn't from out of excitement, but it felt pressured. That's what performative leadership does to you. It tricks you into thinking that anytime you make a decision to rest, or if you are making a decision to kind of stay where you're at to try to find some consistency, you are regressing. It convinces you that pausing means that you're going to be forgotten. It also makes you feel like you have to keep the same pace at all times, that you have to keep performing at the same frequency and level at all times. I would always get shiny object syndrome. I never felt satisfied with where I was at in the playing field. I always wanted to elevate or even just launch new offers when I hadn't even gotten to the place where I felt consistency with a specific offer. Anything that I was doing within my business always felt like it wasn't enough. So I kept performing. I would smile on stage while my body was whispering to me that I was not happy. I was taking on more clients at different offers and sometimes even discounting my services for fear that no one would want to work with me because I was too expensive or because I was afraid that saying no to a specific client would make me irrelevant. I was recognizing that I was carrying everyone's vision because I thought that leadership meant being the strongest in the room. On the outside, it looked like power. It looked like I was killing it, and I would often get told that by many of my peers. But on the inside, I was exhausted. I was sad. I was trying to figure out how I could continue to grow while also feeling all the pressure. But most importantly, I was misaligned. Then came 2025. This was the year that I hit 10 years in business, 10 years of building and growing and holding so much. This was supposed to be my I've made it year. And I wanted the 7th annual Hustle and Socialize conference to be sort of that full circle moment, especially since we were going into a hotel. And back in 2020, right before the pandemic, we were supposed to have Hustle and Socialize at a hotel. And so it felt like this dream of taking this tiny little local event to now what it is, a national event inside of a hotel. It felt like the I made it moment. Instead, it became the year that everything sort of just cracked wide open. Sponsorships fell through due to DEI eliminations, and the ticket sales slowed down. I was recognizing that the audience that I had built Hustle and Socialize for in the early days was no longer the audience that was targeted for the route that I was going. And deep down, I knew that the external slowdown was also mirroring my internal one. This whole entire year leading up to Hustle and Socialize 2025, I was super exhausted. I didn't just feel tired. I mean, if you were really producing and hosting a big conference, of course you would feel tired, but my soul felt tired. And I remember one night, it was maybe about 1 month before Hustle and Socialize. So we're talking late April, early May. I was having so much trouble going to sleep. Every night I would try to rest, try to relax my mind. And I wasn't. I was thinking about all of the things that needed to get done, especially when it came to being able to afford the hotel. I was staying up way past my bedtime, just going over all of the things and talking to ChatGPT, actually. I was thinking about how many tickets I would need to sell in order to be able to pay off the hotel. How many sponsors did I need to maybe bring on before the last bit so that I could be able to afford my photographer, my videographer, my event team, you name it. I was constantly thinking about, holy hell, how am I going to get through this? And should I just cancel? I mean, I've done it before. We had to do it during the pandemic. What is the worst that could happen if I just decide to cancel? I was on the verge of a breakdown, and I knew because of the contracts that I had, I could not cancel. I had to push through and have it. But I also was recognizing that the woman who had built all of this, me, couldn't carry this burden anymore. She had done her job. She had built the table, filled the seats, and she had forgotten to pour into herself. That night kind of switched everything for me. That was where I was recognizing that I was starting to grieve. I was starting to grieve all of the different versions of me that had led up to this point, and I have been grieving ever since. Not for the event itself, but for the identity. The identity of the woman the CEO who could not hold it anymore. I couldn't keep doing it all. And I couldn't keep doing it all and smiling through it. I had to get really, really honest with myself. One, I'm not 24 anymore. I'm not 27 anymore. I'm 34, on the precipice of a new decade in business and a new chapter in my life and in my business. I realized I had built an empire that was solely based on endurance, and endurance has an expiration date. When I finally got through the event, which was amazing, of course I knew that on the day of the event was going to be amazing. It always is. But when I finally got through it, the financial reality set in, and I couldn't hide behind that performance anymore. The applause had faded, and what was left was me face to face with the truth that my leadership needed to evolve, or else it would eat me alive. And I had to ask myself the hardest question of it all. At what cost, Christina? The cost that I was carrying was so much: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, financial. At what cost was I carrying everyone else's dream while quietly neglecting my own joy? That question gutted me, but it also freed me. Right after the 2025 conference in June, I decided to first take a month off and really prioritize a meaningful sabbatical for 2 solid weeks that prioritize my joy and, most importantly, prioritize my healing. I knew I had to make a really big decision about what was going to happen moving forward. But before I did any of that, I really needed to focus on doing nothing but activities that aligned with my human design. And that's what I did. For 2 solid weeks, I focused and prioritized all of the things that I used to love and do as a kid before validation set in or before the world told me who I was. I was dancing, I was coloring, I was hiking, I went to the beach. I was doing just all the things that I really found so much joy in. And I felt alive for the first time. I also struggled to want to get back to work. And I remember right after the sabbatical was ending, it was like the first Monday where I was coming back to my co-space. I was really struggling on how do I even go about coming out of my sabbatical? Because I knew that I had to get back to coaching because I was literally rebuilding my cash flow from the ground up again. In the months that followed, after coming back from that sabbatical, I started to peel back the layers of what leadership had meant to me. Performative leadership had taught me discipline, visibility, and resilience. It gave me the name, the brand, the platform, and it helped me to survive. But embodied leadership, that's a whole other meaning now to me. Embodied leadership, it's what's teaching me on how to live. Here's the difference. Performative leadership is external. Performative leadership asks, how do I look? How do others perceive me? What do others think about me? And am I proving to them that I'm legit? Where embodied leadership is internal. It's from your heart. It asks, how do I feel? How is this aligned with the version of success that I want to live in this particular season? How am I leading from joy and my sacral? And what lights me up? Because I really do believe that if you do what you love doing and if you do what lights you up, the money is going to follow. Performative leadership needs validation, whereas embodied leadership just needs alignment. Performative leadership burns out because it is fueled by fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being misunderstood, fear of letting others down, and fear of not being everything to everybody. Embodied leadership sustains because it's fueled by truth. When you're performing leadership, your schedule is super full, but your spirit is super empty. And when you're embodying leadership, your calendar may look lighter, but your presence feels heavier in the best way possible. That was when I made a decision late July, early August, that I needed to start choosing embodiment. That looked like canceling meetings that didn't light me up, or saying no to networking events where I knew it was just going to be surface level talk, or even saying no to people that didn't align with my offers. Giving myself permission to really listen to my sacral gut for any type of decision making. And it also looked like grief. Whew, I have been grieving. Because letting go of performative leadership means that you're going to mourn versions of yourself who thrived in that chaos. You'll crave her sometimes. Believe me, that adrenaline, the applause, the illusion of control. But you also know that she was never free. Grief is the part that no one talks about in entrepreneurship. When you've been doing this for 10 years or even more, you start to notice the emotional residue of all of the seasons that you've lived through in the decades of business that you've been through. Again, I started this when I was 24. I felt like a baby. I had no clue about what I was getting into or what even leadership was all about. There was no roadmap or there was no leaders that looked like me and what I thought was a leader. And so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I think about all of the clients that I over delivered for, or the audience and the colleagues that I outgrew, and even all of the experiences that I've experienced now through every season of business that now feel like really deep lessons. Every evolution comes with its own tiny funerals, and that's okay. We are meant to evolve. We are not meant to stay the same. And there is a lot of grief that comes with it. I had to mourn the Christina who believed productivity was proof of my purpose. I had to mourn the girl who measured her impact by the number of ticket sales or butts in seats or people praising her and all of the comments of "you're killing it." I had to mourn the leader who thought that rest was lazy or the one who was too afraid of saying no. And if you're listening right now, maybe you're mourning that version of yourself too. Maybe you're in that weird middle space asking yourself, what's next? Where you're too evolved of who you used to be, but you're not sure yet who you're becoming. And you're also not quite sure what needs to be birthed in this next season. This is the in-between. And the in-between is sacred. I really had to learn that this next version of me gets built in silence. It's not meant for me to go to colleagues or friends or old clients and ask them what they think I should build, because this version really gets to tap into the inner voice. And it's really uncomfortable because our world celebrates all of the arrivals and all the big wins, but it doesn't really celebrate the transitions. So when you find yourself crying for no reason, doubting everything that you've built, or feeling detached from the things that once excited you, know that this is not a regression. It's releasing. Grief is proof of expansion. You are shedding what no longer fits and making space for what is yet to come. After Hustle and Socialize, I gave myself permission to stop producing for a while. I reread my old journals and noticed the same pattern, that life had always been trying to slow me down or to get me to listen, but I would often ignore it. And this time, I decided to listen. I'm accepting the fact that I do not need to be making any decisions about what is next in this current season that I'm in, especially as I'm still healing from the internal trauma that Hustle and Socialize 2025 had on me mentally, emotionally, and financially, and recalibrating my cash flow. I do not need to be making any type of decisions other than just being present. And that's when I realized I needed to start asking myself different questions. Instead of what do I need to build next, I'm asking myself, what feels alive in me right now? And what is in alignment with what's next for me personally? Instead of asking, how can I serve everyone? I'm asking, what does service look like when I include myself and my health and my joy and my well-being? That's what alignment feels like. It's quieter and more honest. It's the difference between pushing and allowing. When I started studying my human design, I remembered I'm a generator. My power is in my response, not my initiation. My energy is sacred, and my satisfaction is my success metric. And suddenly, everything started to make sense. All of the frustration, all of the burnout, all of the pressure, it wasn't because I was failing. It was because I was operating out of alignment with how I'm actually designed to lead. Embodied leadership for me now looks like building only what lights me up. It looks like coaching my clients from peace instead of urgency. It looks like trusting divine timing instead of forcing momentum. And it looks like letting hustle and socialize evolve too. I don't have answers for that right now, and that's okay. That really, truly kind of excites me. I'm not forcing it to be what it once was or trying to solve the problems of my audiences, but I'm allowing it to become whatever it needs to be in this next iteration and phase of my life. Because I no longer see my coaching and hustle and socialize as separate. They're both expressions of the same mission, helping Latina and women of color leaders reclaim their visibility and leadership from the inside out. One is the intimate work and one is the collective experience, but both are me. I want to pause here and coach you for a bit. If you are listening, take a breath and think about the version of you who has built everything that you have right now. The one who stayed up late, who solved every crisis, who pushed through every single doubt. She's the reason you're here, but she's not the reason that you're going to stay here. And I want you to truly ask yourself, what am I still holding on that no longer is mine to carry? Maybe it's an offer that is draining you, or maybe it's a narrative that says you have to be the strong one at all times. Maybe it's the guilt for wanting more ease, or the guilt of wanting more. Then ask yourself, what would it look like to lead from peace instead of performance? Not as a fantasy, but as a daily practice. Now imagine yourself a decade from now. For me, I'm 44, 2 decades into my business. My leadership feels grounded. My work feels lighter. My days have space. I want you to think about that for yourself, the version of you a decade from now. And I want you to connect to that version of you. To connect to that future version of me, I have to ask myself, what did I have to release to get there? What boundaries did I finally honor? And what truth did I finally stop running from? That vision isn't distant. It's available the moment you stop performing leadership and start embodying it. You don't have to burn everything down. You just have to rebuild how you show up within it. Because the world doesn't need more perfectly branded leaders. It needs more regulated and joyful ones. As I look toward my next decade, I see things very differently now. At 24, success look like speed and validation and big revenue. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, we want to make sure our businesses are growing and that we have really solid revenue and most importantly, profit to sustain us. But now at 34 and thinking about where I want to be at 44, success truly looks like alignment. I used to think that leadership was all about holding others, and now I know that it's about holding myself and the complexities that I have. I used to chase that validation and that visibility, and now I am the visibility. I don't need anyone's validation because I live my message out loud every single day. Performative leadership taught me how to build, while embodying leadership is teaching me how to just simply be. And that's the real work. It's not about what the world sees. It's about what your nervous system feels when no one is watching you. So if you're in a season where everything feels super uncertain, where your ambition and your exhaustion are wrestling daily, know this: you're not broken. You are just being refined. You're shedding leadership that was never sustainable. You're being invited into a deeper kind of authority, the kind that is not loud, but super unshakable. And I promise you, the peace that comes after you stop performing is unlike anything you have ever built. Because you'll finally realize you don't have to prove your authority, already embodying it. You're not the woman who used to carry it all. You are the woman who's learning to carry herself, her peace, her joy, and her power. And the grief that you are feeling right now, that is the sound of rebirth. What will rise from those ashes next will be more aligned and more abundant, more you than anything that you've ever created. You are not just the founder of the business. You are the author of a legacy. And that legacy begins with the courage to let go. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do next. Subscribe and leave a review because that helps this podcast reach more women like us, women who were never meant to stay hidden, women who are meant to be highly visible leaders. Share this episode with someone you love who is quietly grieving right now. And DM me on Instagram at the Social Butterfly Gal. Tell me your biggest reframe, your biggest breakthrough from today's conversation. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, to recalibrate your personal brand, leadership, and your visibility, I would love to support you through one-on-one coaching. You can find the coaching information and the offers and the links in the show notes below, or you can send me a DM with the word coaching, and I'll personally walk you through what offers are in alignment with your current season and what it looks like to step into this next era with clarity, confidence, and unapologetic authority. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening and for all of the shares and reviews. Remember this: you didn't come this far to play safe. You came here to be unapologetically visible. I'll see you next week.